Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two we've read. I'm your host Scott, and I'm not alone. Tobies here too. This episode, we're talking about Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. It's going to be a mildly spoiler-heavy episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on, and I'll see you on the other side.
To yourself and to our listeners, esteemed listeners.
I'm out of any good coffee, so I'm back on those mushroom coffees I had last time. Which are
gross. Yes,
it's all I have. It's like a national holiday weekend here, so I don't know what's open.
I feel like you've got a lot of national holiday weekends.
We get a few,
you're always on holiday.
Yeah. I believe we get the same amount as the UK, just spread out differently.
Right. Okay.
I'm always disappointed. You guys get that Monday, Friday one. The Friday, Monday.
Yes.
We don't get that.
Oh.
We don't get a 4-day one. That's the Ubermensch holidays.
peak free holiday days.
Funny enough, it's weird. It's actually on a Saturday. But, like when Christmas Day is on a weekend, they sort of shift the holiday to the nearest day. Basically, my work has said have Monday off, and my partner's work said have Friday off. So we're not actually splitting the holiday.
That's annoying.
Sort of at a weird crunchy time during work-ish that we can't quite shift around, but so be it.
Right. Yeah.
We've got a hike coming up, so we're sort of in training. So this is the first hike, I think, where we both took a heavy bag.
Right, okay.
And it rained. I got drenched. Pika was sort of quick enough, and she's got a good bag that she was sort of covered.
So dodging the rain.
Well, you just have to sort of put your gear on.
Right,
practice traipsing through it, as it were. But
how far did you trek?
I think about 20k. I think.
Bloody hell!
Yeah,
about 17 miles.
I think so.
Wow.
I need to check that app. We didn't really take the phone and app, so I'm kind of eyeballing it from the hike we did. But that sounds about right because we came right in from it. But to get me in training, I've basically been carrying around books because that's the heaviest thing I have in the house. Because it got wet, I've just got like a bunch of just water flooded books. I've just swollen up twice their size, and one of them was already 1,500 pages of like cheap paperbacks, and now it's just swollen into like a sort of like bloated book.
Yeah.
And it's just, I haven't even started reading it, and it happened to me before with a Stephen King book, and it just makes it a bit uncomfortable and crinkly to physically read. And I'm like, do I abandon this?
Well, brilliant. Oh my good gosh. Look at that thing.
That was like, I don't know, that was sort of, if you can, I don't know.
It's a monster.
Yeah.
That is a tomb.
To be reviewed in about 2 years, listener. It's Gone with the Wind, in case anyone's curious. But no.
Good. Oh, is that what it is?
Good hit.
Gone with the Wind. I don't understand how you read so much. I mean, you've constantly got either someone talking in your ear, a book in your lap, or both at the same time, or one in one hand, one in the other, and an audiobook going. That's what it feels like to me. Like
but
there's multitasking, and then there's...
But I read several books at the same time.
Exactly.
So I'm like, Toby, I've just finished this.
Literally.
It's not like, he just finished one last week and then he picked another one up and read it. But I don't know, that doesn't change you. And the audiobook, it's just a work privilege thing that if work is on the right note, which it occasionally is, I can sort of listen to it. I haven't actually listened to audiobook in a long time, actually. It's been a good few months. I've just been podcasting and musicking.
Right.
Actually. Yeah. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. I've just started a new book, Atomic Habits.
Is that something we can review in the future?
Possibly.
I think I do have the audiobook for that, so I can catch up.
But it's an interesting one. It's I'm only a short way into it, so I can't really speak with any authority, but it is just about 1% gains at the moment. Anyway, just improving in 1% in a myriad of areas of your life, and those will ascend you to greatness.
Oh, great crikey.
I've just made that up. It's kind of the idea, though.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. If you can, pick 50 areas to improve 1%, you're 50% better than you were yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's kind of the 35-page grab I've taken from it so far. There's another 300 and something pages of stuff, so I'm assuming it's going to be a bit more than.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm up for reviewing that because I noticed my audiobook is only 5 hours long. But I've seen it's quite big. So I don't know if I've got a trimmed down version, or if you get to the back of your book, maybe half of it is just pages for you to fill out.
Actually, no, there is a good chunk of pages that are notes. It's 271 pages long, and then there's some notes, and there are diagrams.
Splashes, yeah. I guess that's cut out for me, all the diagrams. Some guy just going, imagine a line from A to B. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm reading at the moment, which is a break from, is it fiction? And then that's kind of it, really. I'm watching a lot of TV.
Nice.
Ended up finishing Missing the Other Side, Series 1, which is really good. Korean drama. Korean drama about a village of dead people that their bodies in the real world are missing and never been found. So their spirits can't ascend to the heavenly realm. So they're in this sort of halfway village and they just form a community. And then these two people from the real world, for some reason, can see them and go and try and solve their crimes as to where their bodies are so that they can then pass on. That's the crux of it. It's really good, very emotional, very...
It's Korean?
Yeah. It's very sad. It's
melodramatic moments.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I've just finally started watching Alice in Borderland, and even that I would say is melodramatic. And has people crying. So.
Yeah, no, I shed a few tears along the way. Apparently, there's a season 2, which was a surprise to me because Koreans don't usually do a series 2. They do a 16-episode.
Oh, just a mini soap.
Yeah, like each episode's an hour long, and then the story's done. But this one was 12 episodes, and then they've got a second season, which is quite good. I'm looking forward to watching that when it eventually comes out on Netflix. But that's, in a nutshell.
Nice.
What are we here today to talk about?
Toby, before I dive into that, I have some sort of questions for you, just to get us in the mood and open it up.
Fire away. So
if I was to ask you, like in no order, but like a general sense of like, let's say, I don't know, like Time Out or Rolling Stone magazine, who are the big music makers anymore? I guess there's none, like Melody Maker. And like, we're going to do a list of the 100 greatest albums of all time. I would say, without knowing, there's not one list, but different companies and stuff would do it. We would probably both come up with an average top 5, like name what you imagine in a couple of the top 10 would be of the greatest albums of all time.
Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, just like a couple, in no order.
But it's not personal choice. This is just what I generally
what you imagine would be on the list of a greatest.
Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses would probably be up there. The Metallica album, I'm sure there would be one up there. I would put a Foo Fighters album up there. A lot of rock.
Interesting.
I
we were going to have the same. I'm not sure. I would put any of those in the top 10.
I would put I'd like to put like an ABBA album in there. Maybe something by Taylor Swift, probably.
Okay, you've undone my whole argument, if I'm honest, Toby. I thought you were going to say, like, what I would have thought was like...
What did you want me to say?
What I thought you were going to say was like Beatles, the White Album, U2, Joshua T. Yeah, the Joshua Tree. But for classics I don't think I've ever
heard of them. I know of Beatles.
But that's what I mean. Like, that's kind of the point I'm about to get to. So if I was to say for film, the greatest films of all time, again, not your list, just like a BFI or an AFI list.
Yeah.
What do you think would be up there?
Shawshank Redemption's genuinely always at the top. Citizen Kane is largely revered. The list could go on, couldn't it? I would put Drive quite highly up there.
Oh crikey! Got more than one.
Yeah, I rate that film very highly. I
feel like probably averaging in the top.
Orson Welles is it
5? Citizen Kane, Goodfellas, Taxi Driver. Just the Casablanca. And so, if I'm finally getting onto my point here, if I was to say the greatest books of all time, what do you think might be just a couple in the top 10, no order?
Oh my good gosh. Top.
I put this could have been a question I texted you to give you some
Yeah,
heads
would
up.
have been helpful. Gosh, I honestly don't know.
Fair enough. That put you on the spot.
I'm sure that the Odyssey is probably up there.
Homer's Odyssey.
Yeah, Homer's Odyssey.
Well,
It by Stephen King.
So what I wanted to kind of pick away over the next few years was like basically some of like the all-time greatest books. I would say without looking at any particular list, because I guess they all do change a bit. I would say like War and Peace is probably up there. Crime and Punishment is up there. 1984, Don Quixote. But what I was wondering was they've sort of been up there for a really long time. You've blown me off conversation with your music list. So what I was going to say was surely sooner or later there has to be such a big generational shift that, for example, Taylor Swift is making it into the top 100 list because it's at the moment it's like, oh no, she's just like a pop thing, but it's like, okay, how long before Harry Potter makes it into the top 10 list? Because we can't just say, oh, it's just kids, it's not really literature. At some point we have to say like, no, this is a global standpoint. The kids who read it have grown up and are making the list, and they still think it's great for these reasons. So when is there a generation shift that knocks the current 100 that we all love and know sort of off the list?
But do we love and know it? Like,
again, that's my point.
This list has been created and has been in existence for a very long time, and I can't say whether I've read the top 10 of the best literature books in the world. Probably not. So I wouldn't put them up there. So who does put them up there? And who's to say they're right?
I guess maybe they were back in the day. The lists, but I kind of feel like what matters with them is more importance than enjoyability. So that does kind of shift why they're up there. Okay. And so anyway, I've read a couple of them. Some I've loved.
Okay, you've read Don Quixote, haven't you?
I've read Don Quixote, and I thought I'd like
twice,
it.
Haven't you?
No, just once.
Oh no, that's Conte Monte Cristo. Sorry, I get those two muddled up.
But I kind of found Don Quixote quite boring.
See, that's my point.
One note.
I can imagine Crime and Punishment and War and Peace and whatever it is.
I really enjoyed. I honestly think that I don't know if it deserves to be up there because the problem with these lists, like I'm saying, is if it comes down to importance, then it's like I have to take my hands off the steering wheel and say it's not. I don't quite go that deep into it. Like I guess there's a when it's written, but it kind of feels like a cheat. It's like, well, no one else can help when it was written. This guy just happened to be alive at the right time in history.
But you just like it's Stephen King when he says people like my old stuff and keep saying when you're going to write something like this and he's like, well, I've been writing for 30 years since that book came out. Are you saying everything I've written is not as good as that? It's the same thing.
I guess here's an example. If you look at King's like his top 10 horrors, they're mostly historical. There's nothing modern sneaks in there. I would say it's similar to like what I'm saying is like all his books are like important within horror. Yeah, like he probably has a Poe there and whoever we did last week. What's his name? Lovecraft. Yeah, some Shirley Jackson. I strongly imagine. Like he hasn't got anyone. It's not like he just read the latest Bentley Little or something and said, "Oh, this book from last year is brilliant. It's definitely in my top." It's that sort of this is a book I love recently, but anyway. So I finally read Crime and Punishment.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're here to talk about. And that's sort of what that whole intro was all about, because that's probably floating around the top 5 of greatest books of all time.
So that intro was the Crime and Punishment for the listener. We got there in the end.
Yeah. But it was interesting because you threw me up with the music one. My point was going to be, surely it has to shift, for example, to have Taylor Swift in there.
No, and I completely agree, because when you were put her in there, when you were going across it, that's exactly what I was thinking. So great, Okay, so Crime and Punishment. I must admit, you did ask me to listen to an audiobook version, and I never got to it.
No, I'd sensed that, which is why I told you to abandon it. I didn't want to painstakingly text you every week. And
Yeah,
I've
have
done
you read it? Have you listened to
5
it?
more minutes. I did 5 more minutes than last
I've done
week.
5 books since I asked you to do that. Come on.
So this is Dostoevsky's. I think it's known as what's one of his 4 mature works, that being made up of Demons and the Brothers Karamazov and The Idiot.
Right, and you've not read any of those?
I've read a chunk of The Idiot and then I lost my copy.
Right.
I was quite enjoying it. Asked me at the end of the review whether I would continue reading his works based off what I thought of Crime and Punishment, which is sort of like probably average. This is his best work ever. Like I said, it's like the others
Revered.
probably are on the list of within the 100 greatest books list, but not like Crime and Punishment is just above and beyond. So they say.
How many pages? Is it a chunky book? Could you kill someone with it?
500. And there's certainly copies.
pages.
My copy is a nice tight physical type copy.
Okay.
Funny, I guess. Sorry. Funny enough, on that list, probably competing with it all the time is War and Peace. Basically, who's that? Tolstoy and Dostoevsky were pretty much around the same time in Russia.
Okay.
I don't know what was in the water then. Quite different sides of the plane. Like Tolstoy was basically a rich aristocrat and wrote what he knew, and Dostoevsky was like, at one point, sort of ostracized to a Siberian work camp for 8 years, and so probably hung around with a lot of hard criminals, and was probably on the poverty side, who also wrote what he knew. Yeah, so that's how sort of vastly too the different were. Here's a quick Tobies roundup review. Here's a bad one from Kim. Kim from Goodreads says, "Writing this was the crime, reading it was the punishment."
I like that. Nice one, Kim.
From someone called Just Me, from an Amazon review, says, "Well worth every bit of difficulty to read. The book is like a time machine into 1860s Russia. The density is so engrossing. The first book I've ever really read that had this kind of density that was so rewarding and genuinely captivating. It's a life-changing book, at least for myself. The moral, philosophical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, societal, political implications of this book are so tangible to read. It was an enlightening experience. It's a very special book. Would recommend it to anyone who is seeking deeper knowledge and understanding of the world, humanity, the human condition, and even life. Really a masterpiece."
Woof.
That guy got something out of it. So it is set in the 1860s in St. Petersburg. I believe a time of just massive growth population. So it was just getting more and more kind of like crimes were on the up as a whole. I sort of read recently, or I heard, I'm stealing this from someone else's podcast, like one of the BBC World Book podcasts. They were talking about it yesterday. Well, I was listening to it yesterday. It wasn't that it's sort of it's based on the street that he was writing. Like he was living on the street he was writing about.
Yeah.
And they're saying it was just like rowdy as shit, like really crammed, like small houses, but just crammed.
Wow.
With a lot going on. And I guess that is reflected in the book. That's kind of my favorite aspect into it.
Right. Okay.
So it's basically about this character called Roshnikovnikov.
Good pronunciation. Sure you didn't
Thank you.
that in
I
any
got
way.
it right. I'll just do it with confidence, and then people go, "Oh, I thought it was pronounced differently. I think this guy's got it right." And he's living in abject poverty, and he's just sort of dropped out as a student as a result not too long ago.
Right. What was he studying?
I don't complicate with hard questions, Toby. I don't know. I'm going to guess philosophy.
Right, okay. I just wanted to get a sense of his personality and where he was before dropping out and embarking on this. I guess is going to be as a trajectory through life and
there's
social.
An important essay he wrote, and I will come back to that, which is why I think some sort of philosophy. I'm sort of questioning why in that era you would. I don't know if they would have had philosophy studies at that time, so that doesn't kind of sound right now that I've said it out loud. Let's just say law. I just imagine everyone studying law like then, like a Charles Dickens novel.
Yeah.
And so he's become very, very alienated, and he just spends his time in his room with his body cramping, just wishing everyone else would go away, kind of wishing he would go away, just massively alienating himself from the world. And he has to sort of pawn his stuff bit by bit. And he gets the idea there's this sort of horrible wench-like pawnbroker. And he just thinks, okay, I need the money. She doesn't. I'm someone good. She's not. I'm going to kill her and rob her. That's the crime. And
so he's killing a pawnbroker, female pawnbroker, because he believes it will cheapers.
And
perspective.
So by the end of chapter 1, he's done it. So this time, the book kind of should be called "Bit of Crime and then a Lot of Punishment." Let's say it's in 5.
Is it a graphic? If it's a graphic crime, is it well depicted?
It's pretty well done, yeah, for its era. It's when it comes, it's like an axe murder, but he does beat her with the axe rather than chop her with the axe. Like he flips the head around and uses it as a club, if that makes it better.
Oh my gosh, no, not really.
And so it's in 5 chapters with an epilogue. The epilogue is quite widely disagreed as like, why is that there? Like a lot of people feel like it undoes the entire, but not undoes the book, but ruins the book. But we'll get to that in an epilogue. And so he gets away with it like a quite a nice little string of coincidences. Like he accidentally has to kill someone else. Like she's not alone when he thinks he's going to be alone.
Right.
He sort of plans it. Like the chapter 1 for me is clearly this my favorite chapter. It's, I think we talked about before. Have you seen the film American Animals? I think it's called, with those kids from like a college who find out that their university has a bunch of like rare Darwin books worth millions, and it's based on a true story. And so, kind of just for the thrill and adventure, because they are quite rich, preppy kids, just plan a robbery of their university library in which they get away with millions of dollars worth of books. And the film is really good because it intercuts with interviews of the real people. But there's the one scene I'll never forget is one of them just saying like, the fun was in planning it. We basically go around on a Friday night with beers and sort of talk about what we're going to do and have the schematics of the library. And for me, I just thought, we'll get to a hurdle we can't cross. And that's where it will end. But every time it's like, what about this? Like we came up with an answer, and suddenly we found ourselves in ski masks robbing the library. And they didn't get away with it, obviously, in the end.
No.
But that's kind of what this reminded me of Crime and Punishment. Like a lot of things fell into place at the same time. Like he's sort of getting the weapon, learning that she was going to be alone at this early morning time. So I do wonder if like he would have done it if just it hadn't lined up perfectly.
Yeah.
He was kind of
one thing
like a maniac in his bed planning it. There's a lot of him. He will literally just fall into a fever for a few days once in a while in this book.
Right.
Just sort of crawl into bed. Like he kind of starts like that. The moment he gets away with the crime, he then goes back into that. He kind of bungles it because, like I said, the lady's the pawnbroker's got like a sort of dim. They describe her as quite dim-witted, but I think she's just not sharp and a bit bullied. Like sister-in-law is there, and so he has to kill her because it's like the only way I can get away with it is with no witnesses. And he doesn't really grab that much. He almost forgets about the robbery, and on the way out, he just grabs definitely not as much as he was thinking. And even that, he actually disregards quite quickly. He sort of stashes it in his room, like, oh no, this isn't the right place for it. And then it eats at him that he just bungs it over like a fence to be rid of it. And
so guilt.
Kind of, yeah. And
so how does he reconcile? Because you've made
that is what 400 flipping pages is about.
Well, you give him his excuse for the initial killing of the wretch who's a pawnbroker, and he's a better person than her in his eyes. But the stepsister, or the mother-in-law, or whoever it is that's with her, she's an innocent as far as she's got no.
Turns out she's actually friends with some of his friends, like some of his people knew her. So
escalation.
I'm going to kind of sum up what I got from it. Like he'll basically be in and out of trying to sort of rationalize what he's done.
Yeah.
One is just that I will do more of this than she will. I will get back on track with this money, where she's just hoarding it, and she's like I don't know if spinster's the right word, but like not a nice person.
Yeah.
Two is like he talks about Napoleon a lot, and in that, like there are great men in history, and they have to rise above like the social construct of morality to be great. And I think I'm a great man. Like morals are societally constructed.
Yes.
Who's to
I'm
say
with
it's
you.
bad to kill someone? Like if we go back to like cavemen, they weren't like, oh, I'm guilty. It's like a survival of the fittest, law of the jungle thing. So his question, like a lot of, basically this book is just full of psychologically questioning morals and why. And one is almost like a sort of nihilist look, is that none of this matters. Like none of the social construct matters at all. It's all made up. Does feel like the three he sort of bounces around. He never really comes to any of it. Well, arguably, I suppose it all comes down to none of them, because the guilt keeps eating away at him. If he believes in any one of these three, he would just chill out. But like I said, he's just constantly, he's basically a maniac. I don't know if he's meant to be. Sometimes he'll just be like kind of taunting people, like he would sort of return to the scene of the crime-ish and go into the room, and that doesn't feel like the smartest thing. There's like he sort of gets trapped in the building when it's happening, and he has to sort of dive into an empty room because some painters are coming up, and they notice that the door is ajar but locked from the inside, so they just get suspicious, and it's like, oh crap, they've sort of called for help, and he just slips out just in a really blind window, sort of Mission Impossible style, where everyone's looking the wrong direction for 1 second, kind of thing. And he just slips out and hides in plain sight. And so that's kind of what the book is about. There's a lot of characters coming in and out, as I think these big Russian literature books will tend to do. Some are interesting, some are not. Ugh. Some just sort of bloat the crap out of it.
Right. But why do these characters come in? Where do they come in to?
So at the moment, he's like a landlady who's on his back, but then the landlady has a daughter. He meets this sort of drunken guy, and he, for example, he's sort of talking about like how his daughter has gone into prostitution to help pay the family, and this guy feels like a failure, but he's also just another rowdy guy who's quite miserable but loves getting drunk. And I guess that's like when he meets her daughter, and sort of by the end falls in love. She's the original archetype of the hooker with the heart of gold, if I'm honest. And she's not doing it because she enjoys it, but she's not like a bullshit, prostitute. She just basically is like, I have to help my family. And there's reflection on that with his sister, because his mum and his sister are writing him for the first part of the book, and it's like, his sister's going to marry this dude, and she's like, why is she marrying him? Is it because she just needs the security to help him, because they sort of know about his financial woes? So he kind of like has a familiar feeling of this drunk guy who's prostituting out his daughter by saying, if my sister marries this guy, it's for me. No, I can't allow that. And then that prospective marriage guy comes in. Everyone is just baldy. Everyone is just flipping aggro. Everyone is just feels like they are on it 24/7.
Yeah, but none of these characters know that he committed this crime.
The prostitute, who I should name, Dunyena.
The prostitute with the heart of gold. Right.
Everyone's got like 3 or 4 names plus a nickname. Everyone's got like a treble-barreled, like a first name, like Rashnikov. That's his family name. His name is like Rodion Ramhovovich Rashnokovich, and they will call him an amalgamation of all these things, plus an old uni friend who has a nickname for him. Everyone has that.
Right.
Flipping pain in the ass. Funny enough, someone asked it on that BBC thing I was listening to, because the translator was there. It's like, as a translator, you had the choice to just trim that down. What was the importance of it? And he sort of joked his way out of it without answering.
Right.
I think, or maybe like, remember House of Leaves? How like house was written in red. Give everyone a color. That could work.
Yeah.
And the book just unfolds this way, very slowly, quite painstakingly. It's not an enjoyable book. Something I've sort of found was that Like, am I reading this because I want to have read this list of 100 greatest books? War and Peace twists me a bit because I genuinely did enjoy that. And like I said, I know this is a completely different writer, but it's just like it makes me think, I like these big Russian books because I read one once what I liked.
Yeah.
And so I think the people I compete who absolutely love it have quite a good understanding of moral psychology, who know the difference between their Immanuel Kant and I don't know, like another philosopher, and who came first and who was inspired by who and why that matters. Like, I did listen up on that and I did have some notes, but I just feel like it's me regurgitating facts that I don't really understand. Remember when we did Dagon?
Yes.
And there's a lot of like, the Jehovah religion came from this and that came from that. It's like, okay, it's good to know it exists, but I don't know what to take from that. That it came from somewhere and that it means something. It's not just like something he just came off the top of his head.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the book as a whole. I don't know how far I can get into it. I don't know how much I know. I was sort of like, you don't get much emails, but I feel like the one episode we'll get is this one going, dude, you have not.
You've totally butchered Crime and Punishment. It's not made for people.
What I kind of wanted to do was like a sort of a layman's review of it.
Yeah.
And it's not really a book you can pick up and read that you're just going to enjoy as a nice crime and whodunit. Not
because did it in chapter
easy
1.
going. You sort of have to read with a lot of intent.
Right.
If anyone out there is a fan of David Foster Wallace, and you've read that, you'll understand what I mean in that it's just so flipping dense. Right. You can't take this to the beach and get a bit boozy and read it and think you'll enjoy it. It's no Dan Brown. So yeah, I don't really know what to make of it. It doesn't feel like I can say if it belongs on the list because it's 80% were just over my head, as it were.
Was it over your head while you were reading it as well, would you say? Or is it just in retrospect that you're just like, what?
At the end of each chapter, it was sort of very helpful to go and find a chapter breakdown of what I just read.
Wow.
I went, oh, okay, like there's an interesting scene. Like I understood certain, I mean, but I could argue the same thing for the Justin Cronin vampire books.
The Passage.
Just like, like, not that there's time jumps, but there's a scene where like, I guess it was a dream. I thought it was happening live, but it was a memory he was having of when he was a kid about just this horse being flogged down the street. And it's just like the crowd are just baying to like flog it harder. And the owner's just really cruel and they just flog it to death there and then on the street in front of this little boy.
Jesus.
And I guess there's a sort of statement on society, like they did because they could. Like they did because the horse had run out of usefulness. And if there's no usefulness, what's in life? Kind of, I don't know. That's the stuff that's like down to me. Like, I can go and listen to some professor talk about it who speaks with solid authority that's what it meant. And then you have to say, okay, but if I didn't, is that on me or the author? When you read a book you don't understand, when it's a modern book, we quite easily blame it on the author. Okay, this was muddled, author guy, but because this is like the greatest book of all time, I have to take the blame on myself, which doesn't quite seem fair.
Is it? Yeah, I guess. Do you know much about the history of the writer? Was he a big philosopher, study of philosophy?
Oh, he loved it.
Right, so he was writing deliberately. It wasn't like
I'm convinced of that. Yeah.
This is somebody just writing a tale, and people have interpreted it, overinterpreted
it's not the stream of consciousness. Like the bum. He didn't just sort of get into his own fever and just sort of train away with it. But
so there's a lot of analogies and musings on
just hard psychology about why we might do things, about why morals are constructed the way they are. And like that, there's not to say there's no fun in this book, like fun, but like interesting, enjoyable parts. There's like a sort of faux bumbling detective on the case, who's like basically knows he did it, and he's just biding his time, knowing the guilt is going to get to him. You're just like, you'll come to me. Like, no, I don't. I can't pin this on you, but I will. Like, he basically predicts. He's like, within 3 days, you will come to me because you won't be able to take the the psychological punishment. And he's quite a fun guy, and you need some fun in this flipping novel. There's not many moments for brightness. There's like a horrible scene at a funeral well, I guess everyone just gets smashed, and everyone is just horribly vindictive to all like the wrong people. People are like out of revenge, setting people up as criminals. Like, I'm missing 100 robber checks. This wench stole it. Check her pockets. And it's like this other guy's like, I saw him stash it in the pocket. Like, why would you do that? But everyone's sort of drunk and rowdy, just picking on fights with other people. It's quite nightmarish to read. That's kind of the best bit about it, I suppose. Like I've said with Franz Kafka, the feeling he gives me is more enjoyable than his plots and stories and characters. Yeah, so that's I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on the Crime and Punishment, because I don't have too many. It was just sort of reading something that's just over your
up
head.
there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Would you say on with a second reading you'd be able to sit back and interpret more of what was being tried to say?
At the moment, it's far too fresh to even think about going into this. Like at the time, I was like, I think I've got a copy of Demons on my shelf and Brothers Karamazov like downstairs. So I was like, I'll just pound these out, and then I'll get The Idiot, and then it'll be a nice run of all four. And I'm thinking, no way. Like just the density is just like, oh god, like this. It did become a chore reading this one, if I'm honest.
Right.
So The Idiot, I've read a chunk of the beginning and I really enjoyed. So I'm up for definitely getting into that. But I'm very aware that if I'd have just read the first part of this one and lost it, I'd have the same thoughts, because you know, I did really enjoy that. The Brothers Karamazov, I've listened to like a couple-hour radio play, so I sort of know how it plays out, and I think I'd enjoy it. That one is more of a whodunit. That's like, I think one of the brothers has been murdered, and it's like a string of like who did it, I think.
Right.
And Demons, I have very little interest in now. I've got a feeling it's going to be the worst parts of, for me, what are the worst parts of his style and writing.
Has this been made into a film?
Probably about 50 films.
Oh, really?
I think there's just, I mean, globally, just like, I know John Hurt was in a movie. There's probably more TV adaptations than movies, but I imagine, yes, globally, like in total, like hundreds or something. Every country probably has its.
Yeah, I could find Korean version.
That's it. Oh God, they're not melodramatic enough.
Brilliant.
So I guess the biggest flaw is just like it's not a likable character. It's an overly flawed character.
Surrounded by flawed characters, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, really. I'm trying to wonder, like, have you read any books where the character isn't nice, but we're stuck with him?
No, can't think of any off the top of my head. No, I can't think of anybody that's been absolutely abhorrent and been the central character that I'm glued to the side of, as it were.
I can only think of obvious stuff like American Psycho, but I haven't actually read that.
I've never read that. No,
not pass comment on that one. I guess I'm trying to think of characters who are just a jackass. They're not meant to be unlikable. The author didn't do the best job of making them likable. Like, I guess people say 50 Shades. Like, the guy's behavior is just controlling rather than.
I guess you could argue myself if I'm reading Atomic Habits.
That is the kind of philosophy I want to dive into right here and now.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I guess the problem is like murder's like one of the worst things you can do in this world. So it's such an alienating thought that it's hard. Like, this is the psychology about murder. It's like, okay, but if you'd have done the psychology about like just, I don't know, like something I could have been closer to. Like, you once told
related
me,
to, yeah, something
you
relatable.
Once stole a pornographic magazine when you were you did a dash and run.
Yeah,
I'm not saying, I guess Crime and Punishment.
It was a dash, run, and stash. That's what I'd call it.
But I guess what was the psychology there, that you just wanted it and you were too embarrassed to fight it, and like the embarrassment for stealing something was better than the embarrassment of buying like a lewd magazine.
Possibly, yeah. I honestly, I think it more as I wanted it. I was intrigued by it. It was top shelf, so it was alluring. I couldn't afford it, and I probably never would have been able to afford it at that age. It turned out that I stole the wrong one anyway. It was Penthouse, I think it was, that I stole. And anybody that's read Penthouse back in the 90s knows it's more of a fucking blog than it is a pictures
like
and
fantasy scenarios in type.
Well, not even that. It's like a proper. It's just got a couple of pages of sexual women in, but a lot of it is deep or semi-deep articles about politics and fashion and all of this other stuff, plus a couple of sexy pictures. So I was quite disappointed when I finally retrieved it from the bush and was sneakily looking at it on the way home on the bus, that it was mostly text.
Is it hard explicit?
No. It's
Like topless, like boobs.
Penthouse. It's a Hugh Hefner, so it's relatively highbrow
on the scale. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't know.
It wasn't a pornographic.
Nuts would be more pornographic than Penthouse was.
I guess for the era too. Showing your age there, but yeah, nice one.
Yeah, thanks.
You're like a modern day Rashnikov. You've got several reasons to explain why you did it, but none of them are adding up, Toby. It's time to hand yourself in.
The guilt is getting to me.
And do 7 years in prison.
Yeah. Is that all he did? 7 years?
I think so. I think there's like a good character referencing on him by the end, and I don't know. I guess Russia in the era. I don't really know what. I think so. Yeah. I think that's the epilogue I was talking about. Is he kind of finds love in something, and arguably finds Christianity again. I guess a lot of this is sort of coming down on like
Christians.
But I mean, that's his savior in the end. Like,
we forgive you.
A lot of this is the morals of like in the abandonment of religion, which is the moral. That I guess that's what they're talking about. The constructive morals of what's good and bad. Like I guess we've had like a lot of thoughts on what you think of religion, but if the strong arm of the laws on top are just quite general good laws for a society, and is that not good for the world?
Compass. Completely agree.
And if we can just say, look,
and surely the fact that he struggles with the crime that he's committed, when without the law applying the pressure, and it's just his inner monologue and his inner thoughts and his inner retrospective look on what he's done is, causing him anguish and pain, then it shows that the law is pointing people in the right direction, because it's a natural instinct to feel, should be a natural instinct to feel remorse when something like that happens.
Like, I guess it just proves he's not a psychopath. Like, he does have empathy. Yeah. I don't know. This was crime punishment. I don't know how to go into it without diving into stuff that's sort of like...
Has it inspired you to go and do some more research into philosophy and
No, it makes me want to stay away from it, if I'm honest.
There we go.
Like, I've had my feel.
Yeah.
Also, I guess it's that thing where it's like this was written on like a turn of a century for Russia. Like I've read like before it was released, but not too before, a very similar case in real life happened. And it was all pure coincidence, but helped sell the book. I think this book was a huge hit in its time. He knew his success as a writer.
Right.
I don't know if it was quite the financial statement you might imagine, but nonetheless, it wasn't like he, like H.P. Lovecraft we talked about. It was not in his lifetime. He got to see.
He became big afterwards. Yeah. Same as Van Gogh.
Brilliant episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
With Van Gogh in it. Not really a book I can say go and pick up and read. It's just if you want
a book to stick in your bag for while going hiking, to weigh you down in preparation for the hike, maybe grab Crime and Punishment.
Like, I am glad I read it, because it's just I get it. It's like if you're not reading, you can say you're not reading it for the right reason. You just want to have read it to say you've read it, but also just to know what the fuss is about, to have seen it, so high. See it so highly revered.
Okay. So by that bar, you are reading something because of the fuss. Does that mean you are now interested in E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey?
Well, I don't think I thought we were going to merge those two together.
And the Because they were
I
just
would
as big, if not bigger, than Crime and Punishment.
I don't know if they're bigger.
Not in like page-wise, but as in read. People have read, probably more people have read
But
E.L.
that just,
James's
but like, it has to intrigue me a bit.
Right.
Like, it can't just be, here is a book called like The Taxman. It's about him doing tax in his room, and he never leaves the room. It's like, okay, that like the synopsis has to appeal to me a bit. Now we have a podcast. I would say there's nothing I'm not up for reading outside of the Bible, bloody hell, Toby, or any thick religious texts. Like, if
the Quran,
if this is my understanding of Crime and Punishment, I don't know what we'd get out of the King James Bible.
I wanted to go through a phase where we read all the religious texts and reviewed those
as a book. Structure's not as good. The middle is very convoluted. He's done a king, and he's gone carried away with this character.
I got steered away from it rather rapidly. Another one of my harebrained ideas.
I'm up for it, but that's going to be a
surprise
Toby,
today.
a Toby
Throws
read. Yeah. But I mean, that is the conundrum with I guess the great literatures. But saying that, I am glad I did read it. There's certain arguments of like, don't ever read anything you don't want to read because life's too short.
Yes.
But then the fact that I did read it, did I not want to read it? Because I do abandon books. There are books that I've sort of read half of them like this.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The podcast does change things. If we weren't doing the podcast, would I have finished it?
Stuck with it, yeah.
There's a good chance no, if I'm honest. When it got to like, I don't know, in between like, I guess, chapter 3 and 4, when you finish it, like, this is what I want to, like with most books, like, what was the point of that? What did you take away? If I was in school and they said, sum up this character in events and like purpose, can you? And if you can't, this is why I've given up on Infinite Jests like twice.
Right.
It's got a banging start, and then it just falls into
mediocrity.
I mean, but again, that's very much like this. It's hailed, when it came out, it was hailed as like the book of our generation, the ultimate Gen X book, like it won all the prizes. What's that?
The Crime and Punishment. Crime
and Punishment from the 1800s, late 1800s, 1860.
Okay.
So at a completely different time. Like I was about to read Anna Karenina some years back, and I was just sort of coming across this video, like just things you should know before reading. You know what I mean? Like some stuff that makes a difference. And I guess the interesting one is like, you know, what it means to be exiled in Russia at that time. So I guess it's quite neat. I guess Romeo and Juliet deal with that, because it's in our modern times head, we just think, oh, I have to move out of the city. I'm going to have to go. I live in London, and I'm going to have to go and bloody live in Wales or something. But it's obviously not. I guess it's hard. I don't know. Push it again. I'll
so it's like
bring
made
out more when I do Anna Karenina.
Poverty. Yeah, it's like shunned, and you're on the ladder. You're well and truly off the ladder. And the ladder is stepping on you to.
And you're going to places where nothing has happened. If your life, like, you know.
That's why I moved away from Wales in the first place.
But if your entertainment is solely like big ballrooms and dancing, it's like you can't be a part of that society, and that society is sort of your life, and like, you know.
Yeah, it's a benchmark.
And I guess a social status signature that you're attending these.
No, totally agree.
I'm not going to give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, really. I guess what I've said makes it quite clear. It's just interesting to read as a piece of history. Yeah. It's the equivalent of, like, I know you're not a fan of gangster films, but you watching The Godfather because it's like it's a masterpiece in movie making, like the camera and the lighting and the setups and all of that stuff. It's like, can you watch it and appreciate it for what it is without enjoying it? For the longest time, I was not a Beatles fan, but I could always just say, I don't really enjoy their music, but I can appreciate what they did and how they did it and how they broke the mold and changed the face of music we know today as one little 4-piece band without liking the music. I guess that's where I'm Crime and Punishment, without really the understanding I have of the Beatles.
Okay. Wow.
Definitely something fluffier next week, I think.
Yes, maybe. Good idea. What? No, that's a good point. I need to get something fluffy on my, because Atomic Habits isn't really going to cut it as fluffy.
You don't think that'd be an episode? Oh no, I just meant for my reading pleasure.
Right. Okay.
I'm halfway through The Handmaid's Tale.
Oh yes.
I'm halfway through The Handmaid's Tale. I'd like to throw
that
that at you
Margaret
at some
Atwood,
point.
isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A book called How I Live Now, which is going to be the basis of Hayao Miyazaki's next and last movie.
Ooh,
so that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, I've seen the first series of Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, okay, that's good because I think that literally captures the entire book. Like the books, I believe the book stops where the series one stops.
So that'd be a good one. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Wow.
Let us know your thoughts on Crime and Punishment, listener.
Yes.
You don't have to. I imagine our listeners are mostly where I am.
Yeah.
That's not, oh God, that's offensive. I'm not saying our listeners are not highbrow enough to enjoy or read Crime and Punishment. But if you're doing it out of curiosity.
More
rather than
I'm here for the entertainment. Yeah.
I want to understand man. And why man.
Brilliant. Why?
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe indeed. Thank you very much for joining us again. We'll see you again soon.
Hey, we're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode. And until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.